NGB Train Videos presents Thunderbolt's Last Run by Thomas F. Young. Chapter 1, Wednesday, Recruitment, Part 2. Anyway, sit back and relax and enjoy. And remember, a dreamer of beautiful dreams. After finishing his tea, the Reverend Weech returned to the booking office to change his clothes. Dan picked up the bundle, which Emily had placed by his chair.
Here, these are my best things. I can't go messing about on engines in my best things,
he said, his voice rising with indignation. The Reverend put his head around the doorway. Look, we will sort you out some new things, Dan. In the meantime, Emily has bought some oilskins, which you can put over your clothes. We have to get Thunderbolt back into the shed.
Alright then, just as long as I'm not out of pocket.
Dan scowled at poor Emily. Mr. Valentine unfurled his smart umbrella. Must be getting on my way, or my dear wife will be wondering where I've got to. I'll see you all later in the grasshopper. And with that, he was gone. A lot drier and warmer, Reverend Weech and Dan climbed back aboard the footplate, while the Squire climbed down behind the tender to uncouple so that Thunderbolt could run around its train. This completed, the Reverend Weech eased the old locomotive up against the train and shunted it back under the Dutch bar, Thunderbolt's shed. We'll drop the fire and give her a clean, and then we're done. The fire was dropped, red-hot embers hissing as they hit the wet ground, and the firebox was raked out, while the Squire joined them on the footplate and swept up the slurry down and onto the track. As Dan followed the Reverend Weech and Squire Gordon down from the engine and onto the track, he sighed.
You know, we're getting a bit old for this. We need some new blood.
I think you're quite right, Dan, agreed Reverend Weech. I must admit, I have my aches and pains, and we are none of us getting any younger. The three men crossed the level crossing, closing the gate after them and turning towards the village, followed the path the passengers had taken. By the way, Dan, how did you happen to be sleeping on the platform bench this morning? The rain had stopped, and he had opened his oilskin jacket to get a little cooler. Dan tried to sort out his hazy memory.
Can't really say, Reverend, but I know I haven't slept in a proper bed these past 2 nights.
Gordon looked up. Good grief, Dan. We must find you a place to stay. He turned to the Reverend Weech. What do you think, Sam? Dan butted in. He was going to get things off his chest.
I've got me own place, and that is where I'll be sleeping tonight.
He gestured with his left thumb, jabbing it over his shoulder towards the engine shed and the train. But there's no bed, Gordon protested.
Then I'll use the sofa, but only temporary, mind. I need my own bed,
retorted Dan. All right, we will see what we can do, promised the Reverend. I suppose you're off to the pub now. He already knew the coming reply.
You're darn right I am. I've got me best suit on under this lot. See you later.
Dan gave a slight wave and turned and walked off in the direction of the pub. They watched him go. You know, Gordon, Dan is right. We need someone else. Reverend Weech put his hand on the Squire's shoulder. Come to tea, Gordon. Emily will have it ready by now. And we can talk. They went to the back porch and took off the oilskins and boots before entering. no time, they were sitting at the white cloth table with the delicate china set out for tea, the sun lighting up the room. You are right, Sam. We need more help, but we haven't got any time to train someone. We need someone right now. Someone who knows steam. The Reverend looked towards Gordon, slowly shaking his head as he picked up his cup. Gradually, moving it up to his lips, he took a sip, and suddenly, his eyes opened wide, and the cup went back onto the saucer with a clink. Hawkins! Harry Hawkins! The words came carefully from his lips as he looked up at Gordon, as if not really understanding what he had just said. Both Gordon's hands banged onto the table at the same time, making the cups rattle. Sam! Sam, you're a genius! Of course! Hawkins! There's not much difference between his roller and our engine. Well done! He leant over and patted the Reverend on his shoulder. But what if he says no? He looked up from the scone on his plate to Gordon. I think he'll have to say yes, Sam. Gordon leant towards the Reverend. Mr. Blakeworth said he heard Hawkins' steamroller heading towards the railway on Monday night. That was why he went to investigate. He remembers seeing steam, and then the engine and carriage started to move. It had to be something powerful to do that. Harry Hawkins must have been in it, with Pearson Crump. But Gordon, how can we be sure? Reverend Weech got up from the table to stand next to the tall window, overlooking the garden, as Gordon eased his chair away from the table. I'm right, Sam. I know I am. Look, he has been trying to get Joan to marry him for ages. Now he's like a dog with two tails. What with Joan agreeing to marry him, and him being the hero, lending us his chain. That is all well and fine, Gordon, but how does that help us? Sam, all we have to do is that we think he might have been involved in the wreck, and Joan would drop him like a hot brick. She loves the railway more than we do. That could be construed as blackmail, Gordon. Reverend Weech slowly shook his head. Look, Sam, he could act as a fireman and would be up to standard in no time at all. And you said yourself, you could be on the carpet for spending too much time on the railway. We could train someone else to be a guard and to run the station. In fact, we must. But to a train driver would at least take a year. I still have my misgivings about this, Gordon. The Reverend glanced up at the clock on the mantelpiece. I think the grasshopper should be open now. That was part 2 to chapter 1, Wednesday, Recruitment. Next time, we will show you part 3, the final part to this chapter. Goodbye for now, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And leave your thoughts in the comments down below. Goodbye.